In today's episode, we're diving into the horrifying true stories of 3 people who fell victim to shark attacks. From an experienced open-water swimmer who got swallowed whole by an 18-foot great white, to a confident tourist who ignored the warnings and swam beyond the safety zone. But first, we begin with the tragic story of young Kira Darug. July 12, 2014 dawned warm and bright over Port Douglas, Australia. The winter sun cast a golden glow over the coastline, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of salt and eucalyptus through the air. Waves lapped lazily at the shore, their rhythmic murmur blending with the distant calls of seabirds. It was the kind of morning that invited families to the beach, promising nothing but calm waters and endless stretches of sand. Among those drawn to the coast that day was the Darug family, who had arrived after a 3-hour drive from Cairns, eager for a weekend of relaxation. At breakfast, 12-year-old Kira had been especially animated, talking about the marine life she hoped to see. She was enchanted by the ocean, hoping to spot sea stars in the tide pools, collect shimmering shells along the shore, and watch tiny fish dart between the waves. The water felt like a world of endless wonder, full of treasures waiting to be discovered. Kira Darug had always been fascinated by marine life. Born to Gerard Darug, a local high school biology teacher at Cairns State High School, and Akira Darug, a senior nurse in the emergency department at Cairns Hospital, Kira inherited her father's passion for science and her mother's caring nature. Her bedroom walls were covered with posters of sea creatures, and she spent countless hours watching nature documentaries. She had recently won her school's science fair with a project about Great Barrier Reef conservation, and her teachers often remarked on her exceptional understanding of marine ecosystems. At 9:45 a.m., the Darugs arrived at 4 Mile Beach, claiming a spot near the northern end where the crowds were thinner. The temperature was a mild 75 degrees, typical for a winter morning in tropical Queensland. The family had been planning this trip for weeks, a celebration of Gerard's recent promotion to the head of the science department. Kira, wearing her favorite blue swimsuit with dolphin prints, could barely contain her excitement as she helped set up their beach shelter. Her younger brother Bindi, age 8, immediately began constructing an elaborate sandcastle system while their father arranged their picnic supplies. The water was unusually murky that morning, following 3 days of heavy rain that had washed away sediment from nearby rivers into the ocean. Such conditions created the perfect opportunity for an ambush predator, one that thrives in low visibility and shallow waters. Among the most feared of these hunters is the bull shark. Built for stealth and power, bull sharks take advantage of murky waters to strike unsuspecting prey with lethal precision. These formidable predators can grow up to 11.5 feet in length and weigh more than 500 pounds. Unlike most sharks, they have a remarkable ability to survive in both salt and fresh water, venturing far up rivers and into brackish environments. Their aggressive nature and tendency to prowl in areas where humans often swim have made them responsible for more attacks on people than almost any other shark species. At 10:19 a.m., the peaceful morning shattered. Kira had ventured about 30 feet from the shore, still well within the designated swimming area, when she spotted something struggling in the water ahead. A seabird, its wings pinned awkwardly against its body, bobbing weakly in the gentle surf. Even from a distance, she could see the thin tangle of fishing line wrapped around its legs and wings, leaving it half drowned, unable to fly. She swam toward it, arms cutting smoothly through the water. The bird thrashed at her approach, but exhaustion had taken its toll. She reached for it, hands carefully moving toward the tangled line. A bull shark had been circling below, its attention locked onto the struggling bird. Injured prey was an easy meal, and the predator had been waiting for the right moment to strike. But before it could, another figure entered its territory, moving with purpose, disrupting the pattern of the hunt. The shark, opportunistic by nature, redirected its focus. Without warning, the water around Kira erupted. The 8-foot bull shark struck from below, its powerful jaws clamping onto her right leg with devastating force. The initial bite, delivering 1,250 pounds per square inch of pressure, shattered her femur instantly and severed major arteries. The impact knocked her sideways, and before she could react, the shark thrashed violently, dragging her underwater. For several agonizing seconds, she disappeared beneath the surface, the water above turning dark with blood. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, the shark released her, its instincts satisfied by the damage already done. Kira surfaced, her body limp, face pale, her hands still partially outstretched toward the bird, which had managed to free itself in the chaos. David Cooper, a 42-year-old off-duty lifeguard with 15 years of experience, was jogging along the beach when he heard the commotion, panicked screams, the unmistakable churn of something thrashing in the water. He sprinted toward the shoreline where Jara Darug was already moving through the surf toward his daughter. Together they plunged into the bloodied water. The shark circled back, its massive dorsal fin cutting through the surface as it made a second pass. Cooper moved between the predator and Kira while Jara pulled her toward shore. The water around them had turned crimson, spreading rapidly. Once on the sand, Jara applied pressure to Kira's leg, working to slow the bleeding. Her skin was cool, her breathing shallow. A bystander had already called for emergency services, and by 10:25 a.m., paramedics Mark Stevens and Julie Wong arrived on scene. They assessed her condition. Hypovolemic shock, a weak and thready pulse, extensive tissue damage extending from her nearly severed right leg to her hip. Despite the severity of her injuries, Kira remained conscious as the paramedics worked to stabilize her. A rescue helicopter landed directly on the beach at 10:43 a.m. During the 8-minute flight to Kane's Hospital, Kira received 4 units of blood as paramedics fought to keep her alive. A trauma team led by Dr. Richard Barnes was waiting in the emergency department, where Kira was immediately rushed into surgery. For 16 grueling hours, medical teams worked in shifts to save Kira's life. The initial surgery lasted 7 hours as doctors attempted to repair the massive trauma to her leg. The shark's serrated teeth had caused extensive damage to her muscle tissue, and the force of the bite had shattered her femur into multiple fragments. Despite multiple blood transfusions and the doctor's best efforts, infection began setting in, leading to severe sepsis. At 2:17 a.m. on July 13th, Kira Darug's heart stopped for the final time. The medical team attempted resuscitation for 23 minutes before pronouncing her dead. Her parents, who had maintained their vigil outside the operating room, were devastated. Jara, who had spent his career saving lives, now found himself helpless in the face of his own daughter's loss. His wife collapsed against him, her silent sobs shaking them both as the weight of the moment settled in. In her final moments, Kira's small hand clung weakly to her father's as he whispered reassurance she was too tired to answer. Her eyelids fluttered, her breath shallow as the world around her faded. Her parents would always remember the way she looked that day, so full of life in the morning sun, laughing as she ran toward the waves, never imagining that it would be the last time. The tragedy sent ripples through the community. 4 Mile Beach, once a place of carefree enjoyment, became a site of cautious remembrance. Authorities increased shark monitoring and installed new warning systems aiming to prevent another loss like Kira's. Local surfers and swimmers spoke in hushed voices of the girl who had loved the sea and had, in the end, been claimed by it. Today, a small plaque stands near the spot where Kira took her final swim. Worn by salt and wind, its message remains clear, a solemn reminder that the ocean, for all its beauty, is still untamed. A lesson that tragically came too late for 32-year-old Rebecca Hayes. 3 miles offshore, an 18-foot great white, an apex predator of staggering size, made a fatal mistake, mistaking her for prey. What happened next was swift, brutal, and unforgettable. July 15, 2010 dawned bright and clear over the waters of Jupiter, Florida. The air was warm with the scent of salt, and the ocean stretched out in an endless expanse of deep blue. Gentle waves lapped against the shore as early morning beachgoers staked out their spots, spreading towels and planting umbrellas in the sand. Just offshore, fishing boats bobbed in the distance, and seabirds wheeled overhead, scanning for their morning meal. None of them could have imagined that a few miles away, beneath the surface of the calm waters, something ancient and lethal was watching. Rebecca Hayes, 32, had always been drawn to the ocean. Growing up in coastal Maine, she spent her childhood exploring tide pools, braving frigid Atlantic waters, and competing in long-distance swimming events. Her passion for the sea led her to the University of Miami, where she earned a degree in marine biology in 2000. But for Rebecca, studying the ocean wasn't enough. She needed to be in it, surrounded by the water she loved. An accomplished open-water swimmer, she competed in endurance races worldwide, pushing her body to its limits. Her friends admired her fearless nature, her relentless determination. Some, however, worried that she was a little too confident when it came to the risks of the open ocean. That morning, she prepared for another long-distance swim, a routine training session in familiar waters. It was just another day, another challenge. But no amount of experience could account for what lurked unseen beneath the waves. The great white shark is one of the ocean's most fearsome predators, a species that has roamed Earth's waters for over 400 million years. Growing over 20 feet long and weighing as much as 5,000 pounds, these sharks possess an almost unmatched predatory efficiency. Their torpedo-shaped bodies allow them to accelerate with terrifying speed, while their serrated 3-inch-long teeth can shear through flesh and bone with devastating force. Despite their reputation, fatal great white attacks on humans are relatively rare. Most encounters are believed to be cases of mistaken identity, where a shark confuses a swimmer or surfer for its usual prey, seals or sea lions. When a great white does attack, however, the results are often catastrophic. For experienced swimmers like Rebecca, the possibility of encountering a shark was always in the back of her mind, but it was not enough to deter her. Confident in her abilities and aware of the precautions taken during open water training, she approached the ocean with the same fearless determination that had defined her career. That morning, she set out just after sunrise, accompanied by her longtime friend and training partner, 28-year-old Michael Torres. He piloted the support boat alongside her, maintaining a steady pace as she glided through the water. Conditions were near perfect. Calm seas, clear skies, and the water temperatures hovering at a comfortable 78 degrees. By 8:17 a.m., Rebecca had reached the planned training zone 3 miles offshore. The water's clarity extended nearly 100 feet in all directions, offering an unobstructed view of the vast, empty blue. Michael followed her progress from the boat, keeping a careful eye on her steady strokes as she powered through the waves. For 30 minutes, everything was routine. Then, at 8:47 a.m., something shifted. A dark shape emerged from the depths, an immense, shadowy figure moving with the eerie silence of an apex predator. Without warning, the water beneath Rebecca erupted. The 18-foot great white struck with explosive force, launching Rebecca partially out of the water. The impact alone was enough to break ribs and puncture organs. Before she could react, before she could even register what had happened, the shark's massive jaws clamped down. Michael saw it all from the boat. One moment Rebecca was swimming, the next she was airborne. Her body twisted at an unnatural angle as the shark's teeth sank into her torso. The force of the bite was beyond comprehension. Nearly 4,000 pounds per square inch, more than enough to sever limbs and crush bone. The water turned red in an instant. Rebecca's scream was brief, a single sharp cry swallowed by the ocean. The shark, displaying its natural feeding instincts, began thrashing its head side to side, ripping through flesh and muscle. Within seconds, Rebecca was gone. Michael could only watch as the great white disappeared beneath the surface, dragging what remained of his friend into the deep. The Coast Guard arrived at 9:22 a.m., responding to Michael's frantic distress call. A search was launched, but the only trace of Rebecca ever recovered was her torn wetsuit and a single swim fin floating near the attack site. For 3 days, teams scoured the waters, though by the second day, the mission had shifted from a rescue effort to a recovery operation. After obtaining Rebecca's information from Michael, authorities contacted her parents, Robert and Linda Hayes, at their home in Maine. The call came as a shock. Rebecca had swum in open waters for years, and the idea that she was simply gone felt impossible. Within hours, they were on a flight to Florida, desperate for answers. At the marina, they watched each search boat return, hoping for any sign of their daughter. Volunteers joined the efforts, combing the shoreline for debris, while Rebecca's friends from the open water swimming community called in, offering support. But with each passing day, the weight of reality settled heavier. She wasn't coming back. On July 19th, commercial fisherman Frank Martinez and his crew were out on the water 20 miles south of the attack site when something caught his attention. A massive great white shark, its sleek body cutting effortlessly through the waves, swam close to the boat. As it passed, Martinez noticed a deep, jagged scar running along its left gill slit, a distinctive marking he had heard about just days earlier. Local authorities had put out a call to fishermen, dive operators, and boat captains in the area, alerting them to be on the lookout for a large great white with a unique scarring pattern. The description matched reports given by Michael Torres, who had seen the unique pattern on the shark during the attack. Martinez immediately contacted authorities, reporting the sighting and giving precise coordinates before the shark disappeared into deeper waters. Marine officials already monitoring the area deployed tracking teams using aerial surveillance and patrol boats. Over the next 2 days, they followed the shark's movements, eventually locating it near a deep-water shelf where large predators often hunt. Believing this was the same shark responsible for Rebecca's death, they made the decision to capture and examine it. When the shark was dissected, what they found left no doubt. Inside its stomach were human remains, fragments of bone, and a shredded section of Rebecca's wetsuit. Michael, the sole witness to Rebecca's death, was deeply shaken and withdrew from open water swimming. In the aftermath, he abandoned the sport entirely, unable to return to the water without remembering what had happened. Her family was devastated. The loss of their daughter left a void that could never be filled, and in the months that followed, they struggled to come to terms with the horrific way she had died. The ocean, once a place of adventure and joy for Rebecca, became something they could no longer look at without pain. In the wake of Rebecca's tragic death, authorities tightened safety protocols for open water swimming, requiring electronic shark deterrents, trained spotters, and stricter monitoring. But safety measures mean nothing if they're ignored. That's exactly what 34-year-old Eric Anderson did when he swam past the safety buoys, unknowingly venturing into the hunting grounds of one of the ocean's most relentless predators. His encounter? A tiger shark, an apex predator with a reputation for attacking and finishing its prey. Trust me, this is one shark you wouldn't want to meet. Let's dive into Eric's chilling story. July 15, 2023 began like any other summer day in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. The azure waters off the Red Sea sparkled under the morning sun, inviting tourists to escape the scorching 95-degree heat. The air was thick with salt and sunscreen, while the gentle lapping of waves against the shore provided a deceptively peaceful backdrop. Sharm el-Sheikh, a resort town nestled between the desert of the Sinai Peninsula and the Red Sea, had transformed from a small fishing village into Egypt's premier diving destination. Despite its pristine reputation, the area had witnessed several shark attacks in recent years, though none had prepared the resort for what was about to unfold. Eric Anderson, a 34-year-old software engineer from Stockholm, Sweden, had always been drawn to the sea. Growing up along Sweden's eastern coast, he developed a deep connection with water from an early age, spending summers sailing with his father in the Stockholm archipelago. His mother, a marine biologist, had instilled in him a deep respect for ocean life, though some would later say this respect had turned to complacency. After graduating from KTH Royal Institute of Technology, Eric's successful career at a prominent tech company allowed him to travel extensively, and he had visited over 20 countries for their marine experiences. The evening before the incident, Eric spent time at the hotel's beachfront bar, Waves and Wishes, sharing his diving experiences with other guests. When a diving instructor suggested he stick to guided tours in these waters, Eric dismissed the warning, citing his extensive experience swimming with various shark species since his early 20s. This trip to Egypt was meant to be a celebration of his recent promotion, a solo adventure before taking on new responsibilities at work. But the waters of the Red Sea held a predator that cared nothing for experience or confidence. Tiger sharks are among the most dangerous shark species in the world, second only to great whites in recorded attacks on humans. These powerful predators can grow up to 16 feet in length and weigh over 1,400 pounds. Known as garbage cans of the sea, tiger sharks are notorious for their indiscriminate feeding habits, with powerful jaws capable of crushing turtle shells and serrated teeth designed to tear through any prey. Their name comes from the dark stripes along their bodies, which fade as they age. Unlike many sharks, tiger sharks are known for their tenacity and willingness to approach shallow waters, making them particularly dangerous to beachgoers. Eric had arrived at the Sunrise Diamond Beach Resort 3 days earlier, quickly establishing himself as an enthusiastic swimmer. The hotel staff knew him as the tall Swede who was always first in the water, often swimming beyond the designated safe zones despite warnings. His confidence came from years of recreational diving and his strong athletic build. At 6'2" and 185 pounds, he considered himself more than capable of handling any aquatic situation. At 8:45 a.m., Eric entered the water for his morning swim. The beach was relatively quiet, with only a handful of early risers setting up their loungers. Ahmed Khalil, the 23-year-old lifeguard on duty, noticed Eric swimming past the safety buoys, but couldn't get his attention despite whistling several times. The sea was calm that morning, with excellent visibility extending nearly 100 feet below the surface. At 9:01 a.m., Ahmed noticed something unusual. The usual schools of colorful fish that dotted the shallows had vanished. The water took on an unnatural stillness. 2 minutes later, a shadow moved beneath the surface, too large and too powerful to be anything but a shark. The tiger shark's dorsal fin briefly broke the surface, cutting through the water like a knife before disappearing again as it moved toward the unsuspecting swimmer. Eric, now approximately 500 feet from the beach, remained oblivious to the danger approaching from below. The tiger shark, estimated to be around 14 feet long, made its first pass beneath him, creating a sudden pressure change in the water. The initial strike came without warning. The shark's powerful jaws clamped onto Eric's left thigh with devastating force. Tiger sharks can exert up to 3,000 pounds of pressure per square inch in their bite, nearly twice the force necessary to break bones. The water around Eric erupted in a crimson cloud as he called for help, his voice carrying across the now still morning air. The shark's attack was brutally efficient, demonstrating their characteristic bite and sever technique. The predator clamped down and shook its head violently, using its serrated teeth like a saw to tear through flesh and bone. For 3 minutes, Eric fought against the shark as it circled and struck repeatedly. Each attack targeted a different area: his legs, torso, and finally his right arm. The water around him turned dark red as other guests watched from the shore. Ahmed and another lifeguard, 27-year-old Mohammed Saeed, launched a rescue boat, but the distance and the shark's aggressive behavior made immediate rescue impossible. 52-year-old British tourist James Wheeler attempted to launch his kayak toward Eric, but was restrained by hotel staff, who recognized the futility of such an attempt. On the beach, tourists retreated as the attack continued, while hotel staff cleared the water of remaining swimmers. At 9:08 a.m., Eric's movements began to slow from blood loss. The shark made one final devastating attack, pulling him under the surface. When his body resurfaced 30 seconds later, he was motionless, floating face down in the bloodied water. Emergency responders reached Eric at 9:12 a.m., but it was too late. The official cause of death was listed as extensive blood loss and massive trauma. The autopsy revealed over 32 distinct bite wounds, with the fatal injury being a bite that nearly severed his torso. The medical examiner noted that the pattern of wounds was consistent with tiger shark attacks, showing the characteristic saw-like tears from the shark's serrated teeth. The incident led to a temporary closure of several beaches in the area and renewed discussions about shark safety measures along Egypt's Red Sea coast. Local authorities implemented additional monitoring systems and increased patrol boats in the area. The Sunrise Diamond Beach Resort installed a new warning system and doubled their lifeguard staff. Despite these measures, tourism in Sharm el-Sheikh suffered a significant decline in the months following the attack, with beach attendance dropping by 40%. The aftermath of Eric's death sent shockwaves through his family. His parents, Lars and Maria Anderson, learned of their son's death while at their summer home in the Stockholm archipelago. Lars, a retired naval officer, immediately flew to Egypt to identify his son's body and handle the complicated process of international death arrangements. The Swedish embassy in Egypt worked closely with local authorities to expedite the repatriation of Eric's remains, a process that took 11 days due to Egyptian regulations and the extensive documentation required for deaths involving animal attacks. The tiger shark responsible for the attack was never found, though local authorities continue to monitor shark activity in the area more closely. The incident remains one of the most thoroughly documented shark attacks in Red Sea history, serving as a case study for marine safety experts and a sobering reminder of nature's raw power. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by these tragic stories of shark encounters gone wrong, don't miss our next video, where nature turns the tables and deadly animals take brutal revenge on humans. Click ahead and we'll see you there.